Hi everyone, this is CricketSong with Inner Wisdom and you're watching The Sacred Circle. I'm here today with my usual co-host,
LippyWitch.
And we have a special guest this week. We're talking with DragonFeather. Say
hello! Thank you so much for having me on the show.
We are so glad to have you. This week we're going to be talking about Draconic Magick and maybe whatever else might come up during our conversation. So if you're one of our live viewers, please feel free to use the chat to ask your questions. We love to have questions. So we'll answer them as soon as we're able. So feel free to communicate with us. So, DragonFeather, I figure we would start out with a simple introduction if you want for those people out there who may not know who you are. I don't know how many of my viewers know who you are. They should know who you are. But...
well, my magical name is actually Azura Dragonfeather, although I just go by Dragonfeather here online. And then I am a Draconic Witch and have been a practitioner of Draconic Witch for a few years now. But I've been practicing magic for, I want to say like 5 or 6 years total. I started when I was about 14. So it's been a pretty big chunk of my life, and I've just been kind of like learning as I go, and it's been a magical experience, to say the least.
Yeah, it is. I think magic is magical anyway, but I mean the spirituality and the development that we go through, I think it really, especially if you're really focused on it, can be a very profound experience.
Absolutely. Now, it's all about how much you give to it, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you start out practicing Draconic Magick, or like where did you begin? Like, what was your first?
Well, when I first started practicing witchcraft, I was actually just a Wiccan. I practiced Wicca, and that's kind of how I learned about witchcraft. And then I eventually started my channel to kind of like document my magical experience. I kind of made it as like an online book of shadows, just because like I wasn't a big fan of like writing it down, I guess. So I just decided to make videos instead. And so then from there, like once people started watching my videos, actually a viewer recommended the Draconic Path to me. And so from there, I kind of searched it and learned about it, and then I kind of incorporated the Draconic Path into Wicca, and so I kind of like made my own little Draconic Wicca practice for myself, because I do really like the Wiccan ritual layout, and I really like a lot of the principles, like especially with the Wiccan Rede. I love the Wiccan Rede, and like and at harm none, do what you will is like very, very important to me. And so I kind of just took the Draconic correspondences and put them into Wicca, and kind of like built myself a practice out of that, and that's kind of still what I'm doing.
Okay, now, so I don't know, like, basically anything about Draconic Magick, so I'm going to be definitely asking questions from a novice, even if, I mean, honestly, I know Draconic dragons. That's basically what I know. So, are you able to take, like, this idea, this Draconic Magick practice, if that's what you would call it, and sort of slide it into any sort of other spiritual path? Are you able, I mean, is that something that is easily done?
Well, I haven't really tried to put the Draconic Path, like, because without Wicca, it's considered like the Draconic Path. Okay. And I haven't really tried to put that in anything else. But putting it into Wicca really worked for me. Like, for example, like the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. You have the dragon elemental guardians. So you have Grail for earth, the earth dragon guardian. You have Nalian, which is the water dragon guardian. Fafnir, which is the fire dragon guardian. And Ceres, which is the air dragon guardian. And you can call upon them instead of like the actual elements. Oh. So like when you were to call upon like earth for your circle, or like whatever quarters you're calling, you can call upon those guardians instead of the regular elements. However, it's a little bit, I don't know if you can really incorporate it. I'm sure you could, I'm sure you could really incorporate it however you want to any other practice, but it clicks pretty well with Wicca, so I'm pretty satisfied.
Well, is it a path or a spirituality that you can use on its own? I mean, it's a spiritual practice all by itself without sort of incorporating it into any other form of like Wicca or whatever else you would.
I mean, the Draconic Path itself is like its own path. You can practice the Draconic Path and follow that. Nothing else involved. I don't even know if like you have to like have like a particular type of magic like involved when you use just the Draconic Path. Like I know Draconic Magick is a very big thing in the Draconic Path, like Draconic Witchcraft too. But yes, it is something that you can use on its own. However, they're like the Draconic Path and Draconic Wicca are different. Draconic Wicca is just like the Draconic Path with a Wiccan twist on it. That's pretty much the only difference. So I prefer using the standard like Wiccan ritual layout. Like the whole god and goddess, like yin and yang type of duality is very, very prominent in my practice. Though it's not really acknowledged as as intensely or like symbolically in the Draconic Path, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so thinking of that, and I'm like trying to compare it to Wicca because I'm a non-traditional Wiccan. Within the Draconic Path, if you're sort of not including it in Wicca, do they have deities? Is there a relationship with deities, or are the dragons deities? I mean, how do they view that?
So that's a very common question, actually, that I get personally. In the Draconic Path, you can still work with gods and goddesses like Isis and Osiris and stuff like that. However, in your circle, the dragon is held in the highest regard. They are considered, I guess, even above gods and goddesses, if that makes sense. Just because I feel like dragons themselves are very much the personifications of the elements. So it's like they are the elements. They don't control the elements, they are the elements. They are these elemental guardians. So there's also dragon gods too. So probably the most common one is the dragon goddess, which is a red dragon. And I personally have never met her. I've never worked with her. It's very rare to actually establish connection with that dragon guardian, or that dragon god, actually, just because she's very, very high ranking. But there are different types of dragon gods and goddesses that I'm still learning about, actually, and some of them are a little scary to work with. Their names are complicated, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, but there is one dragon god of war and chaos, and if you invoke them for the wrong reasons, it can really backfire on you. So it's a very like strict disciplinary, like self-discipline is like the most important thing, and like being honest with yourself and being able to identify like your true soul, your true heart of hearts is like really held in high regard, because they can see right through you, basically, like if you're lying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to be honest.
So they're the dragons that are the gods, is it a similar pantheon or sort of setup as other, cultures have? Like you said, Isis and Osiris and have gods of, fertility or magic. Is it similar? Is it similar within the Draconic Path?
Actually, yeah. Let me just run through this book real quick, because I know I have it written in here somewhere. But there is, I know there's a dragon god of fertility, and I know there's like, okay, so here it is. There's Morthan, or Morzadan, I think that's how you pronounce it. She's the dragon goddess of bountiful harvests of all kinds, and she like basically represents the mother aspect of dragonkind. So like Isis is a very motherly goddess, like Morzadan would be considered the motherly dragon figure. So there's a few of them in here. Like I think I might have like, I've written down like a few, like handful of dragon gods that I found just online. But yeah, it's really hard to find information on the Draconic Path, unfortunately.
Why do you think it is?
I think that it's that way because this path is a very left-handed path. It's not practiced by many people, and most practitioners of this path have learned by word of mouth. So it's very like much an oral type of practice rather than you can buy books and books and books on it. I mean, yeah, you can buy books on it these days, like Mystical Dragon Magic by D.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Is she frozen for you too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I hope she comes right back. Well, let's go to the chat room. Haley Loken or Hellbound Heathen. Who else is out there? I want to say hi to everybody. Gregor, Madam Luna, Volk Knight, Eternal Ascent. Hey, everybody. Hi, David. Two witches that got you started on your journey on the same live video tonight. It's a good night indeed. Oh, you mean Lippy and I? Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
You and DragonFeather have been doing this way longer than I have, that's for sure.
Fuck yeah. Woo! All right. No, you have not missed too much. DragonFeather is frozen. She is a frozen feather. Hopefully she comes back on.
You might want to Facebook her real quick.
I don't even have my Facebook open. Hold on.
Gasp.
Oh, actually, I don't know if I can. I don't know if we're. Oh, she fell off the call. Hopefully,
Yeah, so she's probably gonna restart here momentarily.
Here she's coming back.
Da, da, da.
All right.
Yay, you're back.
All right, cool. Let's get my face. There we go.
And
Okay.
actually, that distortion is all gone too.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Oh, that is
well.
nice and clear. That was great. Okay, so I don't know where you cut off on. Do you remember what she was in the middle
I think
of?
it was, she was starting to list off the books.
Oh, that's right. You were in the middle of mentioning a book.
So the biggest books that I recommend and have been like my go-to books for this practice have been Dancing with Dragons and Mystical Dragon Magic by DJ Conway. And I have some videos that go over like exercises in these books on my channel. But yeah, it's been really good, like a good wealth of information, and like it goes through like draconic rituals, like how to connect to dragon guardians, different elemental dragons, like it literally covers everything. It's pretty cool.
I had found a website when I was trying to do some research to try to come up with some questions for you, or at least have something of an idea, although I didn't get much. When I was looking online, there's not a lot of, I would consider, good information. I got a lot of stuff that didn't seem, I don't know, not dissing on anybody's website out there, but it's just like Wicca. You look up Wicca, you can find the really good stuff, and the stuff you're like, what?
Yeah.
What did they just say? Hellbound Heathen wants to know, where did Dragon Wicca originate from? Do you know where it sort of came about?
Just Draconic Wicca?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. It's just kind of something that I slapped together myself, just because I really had this profound connection to dragons my whole life, and I was already a practitioner of Wicca, and Wicca was like really working for me. Like I was really connecting well and like actually having some good effective rituals and spells, and so basically just kind of taking what was already working for me and just like incorporating the dragons that I love so much really kind of did it for me, and I really do like it. It's not as daunting as just the Draconic Path, though I'm sure that as time goes on I'll probably venture more towards just the Draconic Path, but still Draconic Wicca is working for me right now.
Yeah. I think, do you think, I mean, from just the few people that I've met online who have this connection with dragons, it seems like a lot of them do the Wicca Draconic mix. It seems like it's almost like a natural pairing from what I've seen and the people that I've met that have, mentioned Draconic Magic being part of their practice. So
well, I personally did not know that.
Oh, really? That's what
I've
seen.
I had no idea.
Unless, I mean, because I'm a non-traditional Wiccan, it might just be that those Wiccans are watching my channel and contacting me, and then, that's how they find me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You brought up the idea of Lippy, do you have anything to ask before I just keep going?
I've been very quiet. I actually do, but I don't know if it's related to Draconic Wicca or anything. But I noticed you're wearing a bindi,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm not sure if that has anything to do with the Draconic Wicca or if it's based off the like Hindu reason of wearing it or whatnot.
So I have always really been like fascinated with like Hindu like spirituality and like culture, like especially. However, my bindi is really not related to that at all. The personal symbolism behind all the dots on my face. um, I I have 369 in my channel name because it is a very, very significant number for me magically. I tend to attract people who have seen that number all the time. And for me, like the power of 3 times 3 is 9. And so like that number is just very powerful for me. And it's kind of to represent like 3 and then 6 and 9. Like I have 9 dots total. And it's just kind of like to represent like an awakening that I've had like in my past, past few months, no, almost a year ago, I think, to really like understand, like it was really like me understanding like draconic energy. And I was like, oh, like I guess awakened in a sense is like, I don't really have another term for it. But now even more so, since I've had a Kundalini awakening, I feel like it's just kind of representing like raising the energy, like that I'm a conscious being, like a conscious infinite being of light, and like that's kind of like what it represents, I guess.
You good, Tara? You're good with the... Any follow-up question on that? No?
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay. All right, let me see.
Sorry, lackluster today.
That's okay. History of Draconic Magick. Someone, Josephine, is asking, do you know the history and what is it, if you have any idea of the history of Draconic Magick?
So it's really hard to find like decent history on Draconic Magick, and I myself am still searching. I'm still very much a new Draconic witch. Like, there is in these 2 books that I mentioned, by DJ Conaway, The Dancing with Dragons, especially, pretty much the entire beginning of that book is just history of dragonkind and dragon magic, and it's like so much to take in at once. It's kind of overwhelming, but it's a really good, actual, credible source that I have found. Online, I still haven't really found anything, unfortunately, although I'm still looking, and I know that it is a very ancient practice. I know that it was probably practiced like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I know that specifically for my particular heritage, I have a lot of like Celtic roots. And I know that in like Celtic practices, it's like dragonkind, especially paired with fairies, is very, very prominent. I think that the majority of the fairy lore actually stemmed from Ireland. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've done research on, that's kind of what it seemed like. So yeah, like it's a little hard to find draconic history on Draconic Magick. I wish I had more, honestly, but what I have been able to find has been in the 2 books that I mentioned.
Okay.
Do you use... I got another question. Do you use just like European dragons, or do you use like, say, like Chinese dragons, or whatever?
Very, very good question. Personally, I find that the Asian dragons and the European dragons are very much like yin and yang. So they like balance each other out. And like on my altar behind me, I don't know if you can see, but I actually have like on the god side, I have like the Chinese dragons, which is like this side. And then on the goddess side, I have more of like the European dragons. So I personally like connect with European dragons more just because like I feel like my heritage is from there more. But the energies of Asian dragons, like for example, there is a Asian dragon called the Shin Lung, which is in charge of basically the storms, weather patterns, and they were prayed to as gods basically for bringing in good good harvesting seasons, and like they relied on these dragon deities to bring the rains that they needed in order to grow their crops. And these particular dragons are the color they have azure scaled, like azure colored scales, and so like that was like really trippy to me because it's like my whole life is like about azurite basically. Like I identify really heavily with like the color azure, especially azurite, which is a crystal. And then I found that these dragons are, you know, the ruler of these storms, and they're very much tied into air and water elementals. And those are the two elements that I connect to the most. So that's just been kind of cool for me in my practice. And I work with, I don't say I worship them, I work with their energies rather than worship them. I feel like it's a matter of befriending these entities rather than, you know, worshiping them as gods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, when you establish a connection with them, they're very much like a guardian friend rather than like, you must do this for me kind of thing.
So
I've got so many Asian dragons. Like, I've got one hanging above my head. I've got a fan with dragons behind the computer, another hanging with dragons, and then we have, like, other dragon stuff in the other place. I would love to flip this over, but I cannot do that, so
For sure.
it's kind of funny.
So, Lippy, do you include Draconic Magick in practice in your own practice?
No, and I really wasn't even very familiar with that as even a practice until I watched DragonFeather. And that's been fairly recently, because I've been going on and off a bunch of channels, and then I was like, oh, okay, so this is the new thing. So I've been catching up.
Okay. And it's interesting because I had never noticed myself until my husband pointed it out, and it was a few weeks before I contacted DragonFeather to be on the show. He turned to me and he said, "You are fascinated by dragons, aren't you?" I'm like, "No." And then he pointed out these things, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe? I guess, maybe?" I don't know. So and then I'm like, wait a minute. I've been watching DragonFeather's channel too, and I asked her to be on the show. I think there might be something here, but that's for another discussion.
I know mine stems from my obsession with everything Asian, because they're all pretty much Asian dragons. So.
See, mine is not. I'm not fascinated by Asian dragons at all. It's the European. But
Oh, interesting.
I know. We'll talk about it later when the podcast is done, because I want to share some stuff with you. But so if we look at the Draconic Path and we look at like the fundamentals or the foundation of its progress or of its practice, what is the basis of it? I mean, is it connecting with sort of the dragons who are the elements, or is it, you know, communion with the greater god dragons? What is like the basis of the practice?
Well, the basis of the practice is really kind of irrelevant to dragons, actually, which is interesting now that you ask. But it's about establishing a connection with all sides of yourself and accepting the shadow sides as well, learning how to balance both darkness and light inside of you, and to reach enlightenment. It's kind of like trying to reach enlightenment within yourself through the assistance of your dragon guardians. Now, I'm sure some would disagree with me. Some would say, like, no, that's wrong. But, like, and for me personally, that's kind of what it's been. And it's really kind of helped me accept those sides of myself that are not as pretty to look at, I guess, is, like, how I'm going to word it. But it's basically just kind of becoming your greatest version. And how can you improve yourself today? How can you become even greater? How can you become, you know, your greatest version? How can you do that? And working with these guardians, there's actually a inner ring code called the 5 inner rings, and each inner ring is like a different step in the draconic practice. And there is the draconic ring code, which says each ring be for half a year at least. I have been in the first ring. I am a draconic apprentice still, and I have been in this first ring for almost a year and a half now. I still feel like I'm not ready to move on. I still feel like I have a lot to learn. And then the last one is a dragon mystic. So I know people who have actually completed their entire course, their entire ring course, and I've had readings from these people, you know, just like with my guardians, like for my guardians, for my path, if I'm on the right path, you know, what am I doing basically? But yeah, it's just really establishing a connection with yourself more so than anything else, to harness your true potential, your true inner power, to accept yourself 100%, even the sides that are harder to look at, and to really kind of befriend these fantastic beings. Like we refer to our personal dragon guardians as Monte, as a term of respect, and so we can talk about them without giving away their like real name, because that's like a big no-no. So connecting with your specific dragon guardian, you don't even have to work with any other ones. You can just connect with that particular dragon guardian to help you on your journeys, and it's really just about a journey within yourself rather than without.
And that actually makes perfect sense, because, I mean, looking at the very little information I was able to actually find, I saw that there was a mention, and you mentioned it when you were talking earlier about this path being more of a left-hand path, and that it's more about a path of self-discovery and self-actualization and all that. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, especially if you're talking about, you know, exploring those darker aspects of, well, what people might consider darker aspects of
There's no
yourself.
darker white, black magic in Draconic Wicca or the Draconic Path. It's all considered magic, and the darker forms of magic are considered tough love from your guardians, especially like say you want to bring about great change in your life and you really want to like manifest something extraordinary, but you need to change before you get there. Sometimes when you invoke your dragon guardians, the only way to get you to change as fast as possible is for them to rip right through you, and it's not fun. So it's you have to stay dedicated, and it can be very painful at times, especially when you have to look in the mirror at those ugly parts of yourself, because we all have them, you know, and like we don't have the beautiful parts without the ugly parts. So it's
Right.
kind of just about appreciating that balance, and not only within yourself, but observing it in the world around you too.
Right. What I was saying, I wasn't talking about dark magic. I was talking about the dark parts of oneself, or what we
Oh,
might
okay.
call the shadows of ourselves, and
Yeah.
how that left-hand path is sort of illuminating that. And you were talking about the Draconic Path being, you know, looking at those darker aspects of
Mm-hmm.
oneself. Um, so if I were to say, I mean, I know you talked about the dragons being the elements. Is that, you know, if I were to say, you know, who or what are our dragons? I mean, there are some, you know, they're on Game of Thrones. That's what they are.
Oh
What
my
are they?
gosh.
Or Harry Potter.
How would you explain what they are to someone?
Well, to someone who has never really experienced draconic energy before, or someone who doesn't know diddly squat about dragons, they are not what you think they are. Like the way, especially in Game of Thrones, as much as I wish I had a giant ass dragon I could ride on, it's not really the case these days. However, the way I would explain them to someone who doesn't know is that they are these higher vibrational beings of light that are so high vibrational that we cannot see them with our eyes. You have to use your third eye to see these beings and to communicate with them. They're just like fairies in this sense, and dragons are actually the guardians to the fairy realm. So if you want to work with fairies, it's a good idea to get familiar with dragons and their energy, because you're going to have to be able to pass their riddles and decode their tests before you can get access into these realms. So these beings aren't like, you know, giant lizards with wings that walk this earth. I mean, I personally believe that they did at one point, like during the dinosaur age. I think that's very possible. However, realistically these days, they are higher vibrational beings of light that exist in a spiritual realm rather than a physical realm. And they're very much tied to Earth. Some of them are Earth beings or earthbound, and some of them are galactic status. So some of them are so big you can't even comprehend how big they are. Like they create the stars, they create like the sun and the moon and the galaxies and stuff like that. So personal belief of mine, but yeah, they're just basically spiritual entities that are made of light.
Do you feel like they're offended by the imagery that dragons are mostly associated with?
Yeah, and I feel like that's the reason why most dragons don't communicate with humans anymore. In fact, some dragons don't even want anything to do with us. And they're like, F you guys, we don't care. Like,
No, no.
some of them, some of them are not. And some of them will choose to work with you, but the whole dragon slaying is not helping our case. I'll definitely say that. Like the whole, like in Skyrim, I know you have to like kill dragons and stuff like that, but yeah, I'm very disappointed with that personally. But as for, I feel like the Asian dragons are depicted in a much better light than the European dragons are, because the Asian dragons in ancient times were pretty much worshipped as gods of the elements. And like the European dragon was just like shunned as this giant, terrifying monster that needed to be killed, you know, because everyone was so afraid of it. So it really just depends on who you're talking to, I guess.
I mean, they still honor dragons in, what is it, the Chinese New Year's festival?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Asians got it down.
I wondered if they depicted dragons as evil entities because they were hiding some deeper truth. That there was you know how a lot of, when Christianity came about and they were, demonizing the other religions. I wonder if there is some sort of similar thing happening with the dragons.
I know personally that in like Christian texts, like dragons are referred to the manifestation of demons and the devil.
Yeah, see?
Which is so wrong. Like, it couldn't be further from the truth, but they are quite menacing sometimes. And depending on what dragon you're working with, sometimes they are very, very scary, like very intimidating, and sometimes even make me shake in my boots a little bit. Like, their energy is very powerful. And so when you have something like that, especially most dragons are seen as guardians of ancient wisdom or guardians of a sacred place or a guardian of some kind. When they are a guardian, say, of like wisdom or knowledge or a sacred place, then yeah, to demonize them so they won't, reveal those truths comes into play very much so.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let me see what we have here. I know there's been a lot of discussion in this chat room. Let me see. Someone asked that within Draconic Wicca, would the dragons take place of the gods and goddesses? I think we already covered that. She mentioned that earlier. I think I asked that earlier.
A little bit, yeah.
Did you want to comment any further on that?
I mean, there are dragon gods and goddesses, like I mentioned earlier. There's a motherly dragon goddess. However, if you do want to work simultaneously with your dragon guardians and your gods and goddesses, this is possible. However, when you have a ritual and you invoke their energies, just remember that the dragon is held in the highest regard, because when you do not hold them in the highest regard, it is considered very disrespectful, and will probably make it to where it'll be even harder for you to communicate with them if you make something as simple of a mistake as that. I know from personal experience that if you stop communicating with your dragon guardians, that it becomes even harder to rebuild that connection, because you have to prove yourself that you're worthy and you're not just going to let it go again, They're not just pulling their leg, basically. So you can work with gods and goddesses. I personally have tried to work with Isis and my personal dragon guardian Monte a little bit, and haven't had any like real problems or like real conflicting energies. It's just a matter of finding those gods and goddesses that will work well with dragon energy. Like Poseidon would be a good one to work with for water guardians.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked, do you have any book recommendations about Draconic Magick? I know you mentioned a couple. I don't know if you wanted to.
I definitely recommend Mystical Dragon Magic by DJ Conaway, as well as Dancing with Dragons by the same author. Those are currently the only two books that I have on Dragon Magic. I'm still looking for more. I haven't really been able to find any good ones yet, though if you guys have any recommendations, I'm down. But those have been the really good books for me, and ones that I have really based my Draconic practice off of and used the exercises within those books. So those have been very helpful.
Someone asked, someone who, if someone wanted to start working or beginning in this Draconic path and working with Draconic Magic, what do you recommend? Where should they start? What should their first step be?
Your first step should be sit in front of a mirror, gaze deeply into your own soul, as strange as that might sound, and call upon your personal dragon guardian, be it if you've met them or not. Ask them to be there with you and really assess where you are in life. Just like, you know, take a moment and be like, hey, what's up, yo? Like, what's up, you? Like, what are you doing, you know? And like, what's bothering you? Why do you want to practice this path? What do you struggle with? How could this path help you? What is your ultimate desire? You know, ultimate goal? Like, what's the achievement? What is the focus of why you're doing this? And really just assess where you're at. Because when you enter the 5 inner rings, your guardians will do that to you. And if you haven't done that prior to that, it can be a little nerve-wracking. And it can kind of like be something completely not of what you expected. So really assessing where you are at in your personal life, your personal spiritual experience, even in your mundane life. Like, just assess where you're at and why you want to practice the Draconic Path and go from there.
What else? Someone, Silent Witch says, I've heard that one is chosen by the dragons to walk and learn from this path. How do you suggest someone, so what do you suggest to someone who wants to learn? Oh, you kind of answered that too. They said, should they meditate first, or should they read first about it and then start meditation? Would your same response be what you just said to the other?
Learn as much as you can, yeah, and meditate. Meditation is key. It's the best way for me to communicate with my guardians.
Yeah, that's almost, I feel like, in any spiritual path.
You know, I really agree with that. I really do.
Someone asked, why is giving away the dragon's real name considered wrong?
Well, most of the time, your dragon guardian probably won't even tell you their name. They just probably won't even do it. And I mean, I don't even know my guardian's name. I just call him Monte. But with our dragon guardians and with any dragon in general, names hold power and they believe this. And so when they have these names, if they tell you their names, they are essentially giving you power over them. And if you don't know what you're doing and you give that name away, then you give everyone else power over them, essentially, is kind of how they view it. And what they usually are going to prefer is if you give them a name, because if you give your guardians a name, then they get another name, and if names hold power, then essentially you're just making them more powerful. So you can give your guardians a name, and like, don't just be like, I'm going to call you Bob, so I'm going to call my dragon guardian Bob. Like, I mean, I personally haven't given my guardian a name yet. I feel like I do not know my guardian well enough, and I want to really be on that level of oneness before I really am like, this is the name I give to you, kind of thing.
I totally understand that. That totally makes sense to me. Names hold power. Yep. Josephine asks, where did humans get the idea of the lizards with wings from, do you think?
Well, I mean, I wasn't there when we first decided to call them lizards with wings. But I'm sure to people who first saw dragons, because there's documentation of dragon kind all throughout ancient cultures that could have never met, which is just kind of a little magical fact. But I feel like when you were to first see these creatures, if they actually did walk the earth, what else would you call them? Like, they're these giant beings covered in scales and have these giant wings and breathe fire, and like most dragons' faces look like snakes or look like lizards to some extent. Like even the Komodo dragon that actually lives on this planet, like its face, it's a giant monitor lizard. So if you take that into consideration, then it kind of makes sense, though I feel like calling a dragon a lizard with wings is kind of an insult. just kind of feel like that's not what they want to be called.
Yeah. So someone asked, Arian asked, so can you ask to work with the dragons, or do the dragons choose you?
I have actually never heard that dragons choose to work with you before. That's kind of a little shocking to me, though I'm not surprised. It does make some sense, though I feel like the way that it works is it actually both ways work. If you are dedicated enough and ask them to work with you consistently and don't give up and like are serious about it, then yes, they will choose you. Because if you show yourself that you are going to be dedicated, you are going to be real with them. You're not just doing this because, ooh, dragon magic is cool. Like, if you are real about it and you know that this is what's right for you, if you are consistent in reaching out to them for help, they will choose you and they will work with you.
Yeah.
I have a good question.
What's up?
It's a good question. It's a good one. Okay.
I don't know, maybe. Do you consider the Leviathan a dragon?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I consider snakes and lizards dragons too, to a certain extent.
Well, that makes sense.
They're like subspecies, basically. Starting with the dragon gods and goes down.
Hellbound Heathen, I see your question. I'm going to ask that, but I'm going to hold that till later. I saw you ask that question earlier, too. I'm just going to hold that till the end. So if someone has, if they sat in front of the mirror and they did the little exercise and the contemplation that you suggested that they do, and they start meditating and they feel like they're communicating with their dragon, how do they then take that into a practice? Like, what is that next step? How do they actually work with their dragon? Is it doing ritual? How is it that it works?
So there's going to be an infinite amount of ways to connect with your dragon guardians and to incorporate it with your practice because there's infinite possibilities. However, if you want to start on a more basic form, I would say that meditation is going to be the easiest. If you meditate, me personally, I try to meditate twice a day, in the morning and the nighttime, to like really just have like a chit chat with my guardians. Don't really know what else to like call it but a chit chat. Just be like, hey, this is what happened. How was your day? Like, literally ask them how their day is. Like, treat them like a friend. They're not like, they don't have to be scary. I mean, sometimes they are, but they don't have to be. And meditation is a great place to start. Depending on what element you're working with, would determine what time of day would probably be better. Like, I know that meditation in the morning is a great time to connect with air dragons and air energies, whereas like nighttime would be a good time to connect with earth. So there's going to be that involved. But with ritual, I recommend getting comfortable with connecting to fire. And this has been something that has been a struggle for me. Like, I connect really well with earth, air, and water, but I really struggled with fire. And something that I learned from my guardians is to find your inner fire and to find your power. So if you do not know what that might mean, meditate on it. What is my inner power? What is my inner fire? And how can I incorporate that into my day-to-day life to help me become my greatest version? Is kind of like where you go from there. And usually, depending on what sign you were born under, is going to be the element of dragon that will be your guardian. However, whatever element you resonate most with is usually going to be what type of dragon guardian you'll have. So even if you're like an earth sign, if you resonate more with fire, you'll probably have a fire dragon guardian, just because they'll appear to you. They'll appear to you in a way that's easiest for you to see, if that makes sense. That's easiest for you to understand. You don't have to do ritual at all to really like establish a practice, though I do recommend it. But meditation is really a big deal, and doing offerings too. Offering not only part of your soul, like to like bind with them is like a form of spiritual communion, I guess. I don't really know like the right term, but like just kind of like a spiritual contract, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, with them to be by their side, to always be there to help them. Even ask them, like, is there anything I can do for you? Is a great way to help build that relationship, because at first it's all about building that relationship with them, and I'm still building a relationship with my dragon guardian, and I'm sure it will take years still to like really build it. But yeah, it's just about actively choosing and consciously choosing to reach out your energy to theirs on a daily basis is going to be how you're going to start your practice with them.
When you find or discover or meet your guardian dragon, does that change, or is that one guardian that's with you for your entire human lifetime?
So your guardian has been with you through many lifetimes. They know your energy very, very well. And usually they are going to be very young dragons. Like, they probably will be smaller than not. Like, each dragon guardian that you have will have dragon guardians of their own, and so on. So if you are working with a dragon guardian, like say like, you know, when Game of Thrones, like when Daenerys' dragons first hatched, they were like perched on her shoulder. Like sometimes they're even that small. Like they're still powerful beings and they still have a wealth of information, but usually they're going to be the younger dragons working with you to learn how to be a guardian as they're growing in their own personal life. So it's not all about you guys. It's about them too. But yes, they will have their own dragon guardians that in turn will watch over you as well. And you can communicate to their dragon guardians too if you choose. So that's kind of just like it's just a matter of like reaching out to them, I guess.
So you have, I guess, so you have one main guardian, but then that guardian has guardians that you can work with too?
Yes. I don't know how common it is to work with your dragon guardians. I personally have never seen my dragon guardians. I have no idea who they are. Although sometimes I do feel their energy and it is very powerful. And it's like, especially like there was this one time where I swear to you, I felt some sort of dark energy in my room, and the first thing I did, I was like, I called upon my guardians, and like immediately I felt like this huge, like heavy energy in the room that was like pure protection, and I was like, oh, I'm good, guys. We're good now. Like, so their energy can be very daunting. And yes, you do have one dragon guardian that is yours that will follow you through lifetimes. However, you can have many dragon guides that will basically guide you through different realms, different journeys. You'll have guides to the underworld, guide to the other world, guide to the fairy realm. Really, like, you can have as many guides and co-magician dragons as you want.
Oh, okay.
Or as you can find, basically.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So compared to Wicca, I'm just going to make this comparison. It's almost like having a matron, but then having spirit guides.
Yeah.
Although your matron changes. But I mean, at least it's kind of similar. At least
I guess really the only thing I can like compare it to is like a spirit animal. I mean, I know that's like kind of far-fetched, but like everyone has.
That. Yeah, I thought about that too, but I don't always just have one. I feel like
I know.
So I mean, I guess
Either I have more than one.
Yeah, I guess there's no comparison to that then. I don't know. All right. What made you choose this path?
Well, when I first started looking into it, because like I said, my whole life I have loved dragons. Like some of the dragons back here on my altar I've had since I was like, what, 5, like 10? And like I feel like these like statues of dragons, they kind of have like, they're like guardians in their own way. And I feel like they have found their way to me for a reason through the universe. And so when I kind of started looking at like dragonkind that way, and like just questioning myself, like, what are dragons? Like, who are they? Like, how do we know about them? How have we like made contact with them? How have we connected with them? And what do they do, kind of thing? When I started really questioning myself and really looking for answers is when I discovered how passionate I was about this practice, and how I, even as like a young child, I was probably naturally on this path, because like I've been talking to dragons as long as I can remember, and I've just it's very much been natural to me. So I feel like when I found something that I could put a name to what I was already doing, it was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, I've already been that. Like, I'm already a Draconic Witch, and I didn't even know it, kind of thing.
Okay. I get it. What are they asking? What kind of offerings would you give the dragons?
So each dragon is going to be unique, just like we are. Though you're going to probably want to give different offerings depending on the different elements. I tend to work more so with earth dragons than anything else, and they really like money. I know that's strange, but they like treasure as an offering. And you can even offer crystals to them, though sometimes it's considered disrespectful to offer crystals to guardians as an offering, just because it's like, it's not something that maybe you have created. Like, it's not like bread that you baked yourself. It's just kind of like, hey, I bought this, it's for you now. Like, it's something more so like, when you work hard for your money, offering some of it to an earth dragon is considered like, thank you, like, thank you for giving me some of your hard work. However, more so on a natural basis, I feel like giving an offering, you can even ask your guardians what you want to give to them. But I find that giving them like blessed water, like crystal elixirs, is a good one. Incense, burning dragon's blood incense is like my favorite offering for dragons. And just kind of finding what they like. I'm sure there's, a standard, like, yeah, give them some bay leaves, but like, I know that you can offer basil to dragonkind to attract a basilisk, which is a type of dragon, if you want those types of energies. And I have a little dish of basil on here for basilisks. But it's really just about asking your guardians what they want as offerings, because each of them is going to be unique and different.
That makes sense to me too.
And don't be afraid to ask them questions,
Right. Let me see what else we got. How would you leave a gratitude offering to them?
So like thank you for being a part of my life kind of thing?
I don't know. I would imagine.
I would think almost maybe after they've helped you do something.
Oh, that could be.
For sure. I do know that there is a particular dragon god that will not work with you unless you plant fruit trees. So planting trees and planting plants, or basically creating life to help kind of, give back to this planet, because we've taken so much away from it, to kind of give back to the earth, they really appreciate that. Like, even if you're just trying to grow the simplest of basil plant, or like the simplest little rosemary plant, like, and offer something that you grew out of the ground to them to say thank you, is like a great offering. Like, offering herbs that you grow yourself is such a good offering to dragons.
That makes sense too. This reminds me of the dragon in Mulan, because in the movie, the dragon was a guide to Mulan. Would you say that it's similar?
Yeah, actually. Out of all dragon movies that I've seen, that one gets it pretty accurate. Because Mushu is very much the family guardian. He's like, the spirits, like the ancestors, like, whatever, we don't like you, blah, blah, blah. But it's like Mushu tries. Mushu's like, I'm going to be there for you, Mulan, and I will make sure that you are safe. And that's kind of like what he pledges to her. And in return, she offers her friendship.
That makes sense to me too. Tara, do you have any other questions?
No, I think I've asked all mine that I had.
Okay, I have one more question, and then I want to go to Logans Question, because it's not really related, but I want to ask that anyway. The last question I had in regards to the Draconic Path is, are there groups that practice together? Like within Wicca, there are covens. Are there groups of these Draconic magic practitioners or magicians that practice together like that?
Outside of my own personal experience, I have no idea. Though I would not be surprised I know that in DJ Conaway's book, Dancing with Dragons, she covers a little bit about a tribe. I want to say it was in some sort of country in Africa. I totally could be wrong, but she's talking about how just by her working with dragons, she discovered these secrets from this ancient tribe, and they were shocked how she knew this. And she only knew it because she was working with the dragons. So I'm sure there are tribes and there are, circles of people who will practice. I myself really want to find one because it is like the most passionate thing I'm about. Like, I'm most passionate about it. But in my personal experience, my own circle of friends, we have actually worked with Dragonkind together. And one of my close friends is actually he's a practitioner of the Draconic Path too. He doesn't really practice so much on the Wiccan side like I do, but he's really developed his connection with his dragon guardians, and it's really cool. It's unique to work with somebody who's also invested that, because then you can invoke all of the dragons at the same time to really raise some powerful energy. And for a while, I call them the tribe, and for a while there was this chaos dragon that kept showing up to my friend. His name is Eagleheart, and he said that it was this black dragon who had scales of the starry night sky, and he would show up to my friend Calvin or Eagleheart, and this dragon would just make its presence known. And it's crazy because I have had dreams of a starry scaled dragon before, and for a while we were convinced that this dragon was the guardian of our tribe, and that was really cool. And I'll still reach out to that dragon guardian too, and just from that experience, it's most definitely possible to work in a circle of draconic witches. Though I don't really know of any popular group. I don't really know of any actively practicing group in the US, but I definitely want to start one, that's for sure.
Okay. Let me just make sure before I ask Logans question.
Just fair warning, that clock's going to go off.
Okay, so Logan asked this. He wanted to know, have you, DragonFeather, ever had other people do videos about you or poking fun at you or your beliefs in this draconic practice?
I warned you.
I'm going to put you on mute.
Okay, it's done.
Okay, cool.
Have you ever had anybody make fun of you or your beliefs, and what do you do, and what do you think about that? Do you respond to them? Do you watch them? Do you ignore them?
Personally, I'm aware of a YouTube channel called Atheism is Unstoppable that takes a lot of my videos and makes fun of me. They have one saying, DragonFeather teaches us how to burn paper. I honestly think it's kind of funny. However, some of the things that they have said have been, sexual references and innuendos that have personally made me very uncomfortable and disgusted. But I try not to invest my energy in there. When I hear that they've uploaded another video of mine, editing it or whatever, I do kind of check it out just to see what's going on. And I've reported them many times, but at this point in my life, I've kind of just you know what, the haters are going to hate, and I'm just going to do me. And if they have a problem with that, I really don't care, just because their thoughts don't dictate who I am. They don't define me, I define me. So in that particular situation, it doesn't matter who's hating on me. I've even had my own family members hate on me for, certain differences, that I have. And I just really don't care. I try not to care, because it's if you do care, then it's it's going to upset you. It's going to make it even bigger than it has to be. And if you just accept it for what it is, acknowledge it, and let it flow out of you, then I feel that's the best way to deal with those situations.
Right, I agree.
Word.
Terry, okay, I did unmute you. I'm did I unmute you? Because I had you on mute.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I couldn't unmute. I don't know.
Is that clock, though?
Yes. The clock, and that means it's 9 o'clock. That means we've been going on for 60 minutes, so it's time for us to end. I'd love to have you back, and I have a couple of ideas. So hopefully DragonFeather will return. Thank you for being a part of our show. It was
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. Thank you all in the chat room for having such an active conversation.
Yeah, those are some good questions, guys.
I know. I'd like to take this time to announce our winner from last week's contest giveaway. The winner for this week is Christian Campbell Jr. So, Christian, I want you to make sure you contact us on the Sacred Circle page or on my CricketSong fan page so we can set up a time where I can do your free 15-minute tarot reading.
Wow, that's awesome.
And the question for this week, so remember what you need to do to enter this contest giveaway is to like the Sacred Circle Facebook page. Post your answer to the question. I will have a post that says, put your answers to the question here. Make sure you answer. All individuals who posted the correct answer will be entered into the random drawing, and a name will be picked and will be announced next week. So the correct answer, the question for last week was how many times has Nico of Scarlet Moon Magic appeared as a guest on the Sacred Circle? And the correct answer was 3, you guys. It was not a trick question. That was the correct answer. He was on 3 times. So next week, you need to answer this question. Okay. In the episode where CricketSong and LippyWitch were answering the questions for the full disclosure tag, someone in the Q&A wanted to know, do you believe in the rule of 3? Tell me, what was LippyWitch's response to that question? Okay, so your answer, post it on the Facebook page, and we will draw a name random. And what are we giving away next week?
I don't know.
$1 million?
And by the way, don't try to contact me to find out, because even I don't remember, because this is a while back.
Yeah, don't try to contact Lippy. She's not going to remember. You need to go find that episode and find the answer. I wish I could give away $1 million. I'm not giving away.
Right? I'd be down. Like, enter me in that contest.
I know, right?
What can we give? I'll give a 15-minute Witch's Rune reading for next week. Witch's Rune reading for next week, if you are the winner. So next Wednesday, we have Renee B. going to be our guest, and we're going to be talking about working with deity. That's for next week. So everyone, it's been a pleasure. I love you all. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.